So what does that mean? It means that Project 2025 and the takeover of the administrative state and the dismantling of the checks and balances of the American government, including 250 years of self-rule, is now underway. So people need to get really serious really fast. No one cares if you don't like the candidates. No one cares if you don't like your options. No one cares if you wish there was a third party or something better. We are watching a Christo-fascist authoritarian takeover of America. So what are you going to do about it? Will you defend our nation against a presidency with unchecked power? Do you believe that the American president should run our country like Russia, where the leader can never lose and political rivals are murdered and anyone who speaks up against the government falls out of a frickin' window? Because that's where we are, people. This isn't a drill. 6 members of our Supreme Court have been compromised. They work on behalf of the religious right and the billionaire class, and they just made it possible for our president to be a king. We are about to celebrate the 4th of July, our Independence Day as a nation of the people, by the people, for the people. And this corrupt court has just taken everything that our founding fathers and framers created and set it on fire. So we need to decide what we're going to do about it good and fast, or this is the last election this country will ever have. Wake up to where we sit in history and what our choices are now. Stop complaining, stop whining, get your friends and your family together and stand up for this country that has stood as a beacon of hope around the world for 200 years. As Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote in the final words of her dissent to this terrible ruling, never in the history of our republic has a president had a reason to believe that he would be immune from criminal prosecution if he used the trappings of his office to violate a criminal law. Moving forward, however, all former presidents will be cloaked in such immunity. If the occupant of that office misuses official power for personal gain, the criminal law that the rest of us must abide will not provide a backstop. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. And with belief in our democracy, I'm in a fight. And I hope you will join me.
Blue wave, we rise to save the day. Only me, only you can let our hearts sail away on a blue wave.
So that was Politics Girl. Happy Independence Day, everybody. My name is Byrne, Karen from Chicago, and I'm joined by my co-host Anita from San Antonio. And then, of course, we are joined by our special guest, Sue from Rockville, otherwise known as Sue Cohen, Mima to the Stephanie Miller Show. And we are here for our 4th of July episode. And to talk about some of the most recent events, starting with the quote unquote debate and the mainstream media's reaction. So, Sue, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm really happy to be here. And I hope everyone had a very good 4th and took some deep breaths and relaxed and recommitted themselves to fight for our democracy.
Yes. I think that this has been for everybody a couple of weeks that have been extremely anxiety producing. We all watched the debate. And what were your reactions, Sue?
Well, I think that's the most interesting thing. Okay, full disclosure, right? Biden's not best performance by a long shot. However, there are 2 really important things that have come out since then, besides the travesty and toxic media reaction to it, that is beyond appalling. Like, there's just not enough bad words to explain how horrible corporate media and how they have absolutely impeached themselves as credible journalists. We could do an entire segment on that. But the 2 things I want to point out that I think people really need to hear is that for anybody who actually just read the transcript, hands down said Biden won the debate. If you listened to the substance, not the style of a bombastic, pathological liar versus a man who hesitated, who stammered, who wasn't quite at the top of his game, and you just read the words, the policies, hands down, Biden was the winner in those debates. group after group report that. And that's why, truthfully, Biden's lost no support. But the second thing that's really important is for anybody who's on social media, and if you are still like us on X, because it's where news breaks and we are vigilant in counteracting this toxic media, you need to go to Zev Shalev, ZEVSHALEV, who's a former executive producer at many news places. His list, you don't need me to say it. He analyzed the entire debate and confirmed what my own husband was screaming right from the get-go. The mic was not properly, he was not properly mic'd. It was muted at places. It didn't carry right. And he lists like 5 other things that showed the fix was in from the start. We knew that the minute CNN said there'd be no fact checking. And then we then saw, as the debate went on, that Bash and Tapper, who should both either be fired or quit if they had an ounce of integrity, failed to ask even the most basic questions of Trump and allowed him to lie. Literally, I believe Seth Abramson counted 602 lies.
Right.
So we're on our own. We are the ones who will have to save this country.
Yeah, I agree.
There was a focus group for Univision, and we talked about this, Sue, how they were like 90% thought Biden won that debate, and that because they had a translator. They weren't hearing it from Donald Trump and Biden. They had the translation of it from a translator. And so, yes, on paper, what was coming out of both of their mouths. First of all, Donald Trump didn't win that debate. Joe Biden might not have won it either. Neither one of them, because Joe Biden, let's face it, debates are about, presentation. But Donald Trump, what they were saying in this focus group was, he's just a liar. I mean, some of the stuff he said was so absurd, so ridiculous, and so obviously a lie, that people were like, I can't believe the thing that's coming out of this man's mouth.
No,
So
and I think it's one of those things where it's like, don't believe your lying ears, don't believe your lying eyes.
Lying eyes, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
But yeah, no, we have watched everybody. That's what I don't think that they're factoring in. They don't factor in the fact that this guy is not an unknown quantity, right? We know who he is. We witnessed everything that happened. We felt what happened, during the pandemic, during his first term, every single, breaking news, constant trauma. And then, the pandemic and being in lockdown and feeling like there was a chimpanzee with a machine gun that was supposed to be saving all of us or like doing something about this. I don't know if you guys can go back in time to that period of time. I can remember how terrified I was. It felt like this is the end. We are going to die because we already know this guy is unequipped to handle this.
When he talked, I don't know why the media doesn't report this, but have you heard him talk about climate change? I don't know if they talked about it during the debate. Was there any question about climate change during that debate? I only say this because you just talked about how he handled COVID, right? Yeah. And it was scary. And he told us to inject bleach, and he told us, to stick UV light up our butts. It was just but he's talking about climate change now, the way he talked about COVID. It's going to be fine. Right. It's going to be great for us. We're going to, and so he cannot be in charge because when a crisis, an actual crisis, when he was presented with an actual crisis, he totally failed. You couldn't have failed any more than he did.
Yep.
1 million people died because of the way how much he failed.
No, yes. Sorry.
And no, that's okay. I mean, he was telling people it was going to go away. Because when there's a crisis, when he's presented with the crisis, he goes into this denial mode because he's just thinking about his own self-preservation. Right. He's not thinking about how it's affecting the rest of us, and how we're dealing with it. He's thinking about, this is bad for me. Remember, he wouldn't let those ships dock because they had people with COVID on them. and that
Right.
would hurt his numbers.
Right.
He's had those rallies that were, just COVID. What do they call those back then? Those super spreaders
Mhm.
all the time. He
Mhm.
just was living in total denial that this was happening. We cannot afford to have somebody, even if your only issue is climate change, which is an existential threat
Mhm.
to the world.
Right.
So let me add to that. I maintain that Trump doesn't know anything, and that
Oh, he doesn't know anything.
other
Yeah.
people, and I can say this with some authority because what people don't know about me is I'm a child development specialist. I spent over 30 years in the field of working with children, assessing children, working with families,
Mhm.
and I know the developmental norms and the developmental issues that
Mhm.
plague human growth in kids. And I have done a complete analysis, and I am not alone. Many people have done it and have been issuing calls about this for years.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
Trump is basically what's called a functional illiterate. He
Mhm.
can barely read. His reading level is somewhere in the 6th to 7th grade level. He does not comprehend. And on top of that, he has serious ADHD, which speaks to his school experiences, and we can go on. But I don't think he was ever medicated properly. And if he's on Adderall now or any of those drugs to help, he's much too old for that. As a result of that, in addition, he has dyslexia. He has word reversal. And the proof of that was way back in 2016. And the problem with a sociopath like Trump is that he can never admit he's wrong. So
I'm living
besides
narcissist.
pathological lying, when he makes a mistake, he can't just laugh it off and say, "Oh, I made a mistake." And the simple proof of this, just one example, is that he was making a speech and he misread the word united and instead said the word untied. Absolutely typical among dyslexics to reverse those.
Yep.
But rather than laughing and say, "Oops, I meant united," or going back, he
Right.
tried to construct sentences around the word untied, and it ended
Yeah.
up being gibberish.
He does that with all his speeches. So you can always see
Right.
that. He always does that. Chris Hayes pointed that out. Look how he'll say the
So-
word like untied, and he'll go, united. He'll say both words.
Well,
Rather than
yes.
admit he ever made a mistake by saying untied,
Right.
like a normal person would do, he just pretends he meant to say that and just keeps it in the sentence.
But that was before. Then, since his mini stroke in November 2019, he
Mhm.
suffered some real damage, not just to the whole right side and the physicality, which again, let me remind everyone, corporate media completely ignored. He did not play golf for 3 months because he had no use of his right arm.
Yes.
He lumbered down, very scarily down that ramp because his right leg, it was too weak. He needed to use 2 hands to hold a glass because his right hand had lost strength. In addition to that, some of the other things that happen in terms of speech is you get what's called perseveration, where he gets onto a word and then just goes off into the world of tangential thinking. And then all of a sudden he's saying things you have no idea. Electric boats, sharks, windmills, cancel. Cancer. It makes no sense.
No.
But no one holds him accountable.
No, but
Right.
what bothers me more than that, even if you like being illiterate and all the things that you say, because those things are true, is that he cannot tell the difference between like a reputable sourced, for something presented in front of him, information from a reputable source, and some crazy conspiracy theory that nobody like when he said that the people that they were releasing were these they released all these criminals from Venezuela. I don't know if you saw that local news thing. He was being interviewed, and he said, and then when they asked him where he got that, he's like, from the Venezuela. He read about it somewhere.
Someone handed him a piece of paper and read it.
Exactly.
Spelled it out phonetically.
That is the most dangerous thing in a leader that I can think of, because people are presenting you with all kinds of things. You have to be able to distinguish what's reliable and what's not reliable, because you're getting all this classified information. Some of it sounds crazy, and
He's
So
completely unfit, Anita. And again,
every
let
way.
me just add, because I know his history and because of the research I've done. Okay, Trump flunked out of Fordham University. Okay, people think he went to Wharton. He brags about how brilliant his uncle at MIT
he
is.
took a class. Yeah.
But he never released his transcripts because he can't. Because
No.
he flunked out of Fordham, but his brother was best friends with the UPenn admissions director. So he bought his entry in. He only spent 2 years at UPenn. He doesn't have a Wharton MBA. He has a UPenn / Wharton Business School BS because he's full of shit. But he barely graduated. He graduated at the bottom of his class. He made no friends. He bought his papers and his exam results. And I know this because we have a member of the family who attended the Wharton undergrad program and was in class with him. And every weekend he took his car, went back up to New York, where the New York Times, among any others, kissed his ass and anointed him the crown prince of New York City real estate. That was before the first lawsuit.
Well, his teacher, the one, I think he took a math class or something at Wharton. I think he only took one class there. And his professor said he was the worst, the stupidest, the dumbest student he ever had.
Again, there are learning issues got in his way. But instead of addressing them, and when his parents couldn't handle him, they shipped him off to a military academy.
Yeah, military school.
Then put him in Fordham, then bought his way into Penn. And then once he bought his degree, he went flying up to New York to work with Daddy and start his racist, homophobic, misogynistic lifestyle, which the New York Times just couldn't get enough of him.
Yeah.
No, because it's entertainment.
Yeah,
but let's talk about what.
Yeah, hold on. So that I would like to segue. So that we all knew going into 2016.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we knew all of that going into 2016. Now we have him being installed for 4 years. So we know who this guy is. And so now, given that, watching that quote unquote debate and how poorly handled, because of course Joe Biden was made to not only answer questions but also act as fact checker, because
bingo,
Dana Bash
and that's not fair.
And that is not fair. So having said all of that, we all know that. So now let's delve into the mainstream media, and because it's not limited to just Dana Bash and Jake Tapper now. Now we're looking at some of our beloveds on MSNBC. Okay. And of course, obviously the New York Times, right? Obviously the New York Times. And so, immediate response by the panel on MSNBC, because that's what I was watching it on. And then just everything that's happened since. And I thought it was settled the next day when I had my little unofficial focus group at coffee, and then talking to other people that I know, that did not change their minds one iota on Biden. But now here we are, and the mainstream media has spent the better part of the week, even though the Epstein file dropped, even though Donald Trump said that he would not accept the results of the election, nor has he accepted the election results from 2020. Now the media is sitting there. All they're talking about is Biden should step down and who would replace him. So
there's
any thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think we should be talking about, having a criminal dictator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the real threat, what they have done, what the Supreme Court did, because the game has changed now. It's a totally different story now. What the Supreme Court did was made this election truly about democracy or authoritarian monarchy. Mm-hmm. So what Politics Girl was talking about, king or country, I mean, is real.
Yes,
that's actually real. And honestly, are we really going to put the most corrupt, the dumbest, the most ignorant? He's the guy that wanted to bomb Mexico, shoot protesters, nuke a hurricane. Mm-hmm. Do we want to give him all the most powerful position in the world and control over everything for life? Because that's what we're deciding, what we're going to be deciding.
Mm-hmm. And we all, are not afraid to talk about this. And I know talk about it with people that we know. But it's really hard because now what's happening is we're having to combat the mainstream media narrative that they're trying to tell everybody how we're supposed to feel and how they should feel about it. And we know better, but it's like it's really hard talking to people, and then you come up against this and it just makes the job even harder because we are fighting for our lives and the media is not helping us.
Well,
Any
when you
thoughts,
say,
Sue? Sue, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I got a little distracted by my stuff.
So yeah, no, mainstream media.
No, again, there's a
they've
level
been
of
terrible.
calling.
Yeah.
Think about this. The Philadelphia Inquirer, that's what I was doing as I was fact checking myself, is the only major newspaper in America to call for Trump to step down. To
Yeah.
say, given
No, there
your
was in
crimes,
New Jersey. There was,
huh?
go
For the
ahead.
good of
There
the
was one in
country.
New Jersey also.
Okay,
One
New
in,
Jersey.
yeah.
Please
Yeah.
let me send that to me because I want to make a post about
Okay.
it.
Okay.
What does it say that the Boston Globe and the New York Times and these idiots are calling for Biden, who, by the way, let's talk about just very quickly today's jobs report, 260,000 new jobs,
Oh,
60
wow.
million new jobs. The world admits that America is spurring world growth. And the growth of America and the best of what we've done for the past 4 years, I believe, has had a direct effect on Labour finally winning in the UK after 14 years.
Yep.
We can move
absolutely.
the world. We have, our power has been restored. We were a global embarrassment and our economy was in the shitter when Trump left office.
Yeah.
And sure, you can say some of it was COVID, but it was the fact that they gave $2 trillion to the richest Americans and the rest of us got screwed.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
And he was never going to get us out of COVID. Joe Biden is the one who got us out of all that.
That's right.
Remember, he distributed. You have to be organized. You have to have a good team to accomplish what he did.
Well,
Donald Trump has none of that.
And
you have
Anita,
to
there's
believe in
this little
science.
thing like believing in science,
Yes.
which we do, and what most people understand, because not only is it science called facts, and it's the truth, and it's what keeps us alive, but again, I am old enough because I'm an older American. My mother, my parents' best friends had 3 children. The older 2 died of polio.
Yeah.
They only had, in the early 50s, they only had one surviving son who was between my older sister and me. So he became like our brother. And then we have a younger sister. And it was the 4 of us because everyone knew that the other 2, Phil and Anna, had died of polio. So this moron, this ridiculous, moronic, fully vaccinated moron,
Yeah.
who fully vaccinated his own children, whose children fully vaccinated their own children, is leading an anti-vax movement that will bring back polio.
Yep.
That's not going to affect me. It won't
Did you
affect my family because we believe in science.
Yes.
But he is the grave existential threat to America at this
To the world.
time.
To the
And
world,
to the world.
really.
And the
To the world.
fact that only 2 newspapers, as you say, are calling for him to step down.
That's
Truly, Karen, is
astounding.
the answer
That
to
is-
the question. It tells
Yeah.
you there are no more investigative journalists.
Yes.
All of that, all corporate media is owned by GOP fascists who care more about a profit line, still playing the odds, and they just bet away. If they get Trump, if they get to reinstall Trump, they better stay away from high floors and windows, because then they've learned nothing about what happened to the Russian journalists.
I'm going to play, I'm sure you ladies all heard this. I am thrilled because we've been talking about Project 2025. Anita and I had Wendy Vi and Heidi Berk on from the Project Against Global Extremism, globalextremism.org. Is where you can go to their site and get all kinds of great information and updates on Project 2025 and the spreading of right-wing extremism globally. Subscribe to their newsletter, donate if you can. Anyway, I'm so happy that there are people in entertainment now speaking about it. So I'm going to play this clip.
From the BET, right? From BET?
This is from BET Awards.
BET Awards.
Yes, here we go.
They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up.
That was Taraji P. Henson bringing up Project 2025 on the BET Awards, and God bless her for doing it for a while now. It's felt like it's just been me and a handful of others talking about this. Then she did that, and Google searches for Project 2025 spiked.
So, thank you. Thank you. That is how we do it, you know, in spite of the mainstream media.
Yeah, we have to get like places.
Their responsibility, yeah, right?
Because a lot of people don't pay attention to the news, like those people at the BET Awards. That's going to reach a lot of people that might not necessarily have even heard of Project 2025.
Yeah.
Because they're not watching Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid. I would like to see more of that. I'd like to see everywhere at the Academy Awards, the Emmys, the Grammys. It needs to be, you know, presented to audiences that aren't going to hear it in, you know, political spaces.
Yeah, and so this week, the head of the Heritage Foundation said that there would be a revolution and that it would be bloodless if the left just
doesn't
lets it happen.
Yeah, if we don't
resist.
If we don't resist, which tells you everything. They are so arrogant. They just really believe that they're going to win, and we just. I think they're, which Republicans always do. There's always this kind of overreach for Republicans. You know, like even in 2020, Donald Trump and those people, that's why they get so angry. They really thought they were going to win. They thought he had it in the bag.
Yeah.
Because they live in these bubbles. They only watch news that lies to them because they want people to lie to them. And so they go around thinking that way. Then fine, we're going to show them. They're going to feel really stupid. They're going to feel, and I don't care. Joe Biden is in charge, guys.
Yeah.
If they try another January 6th, it's not going to go down the way it did in 2020.
Right.
2021.
Yeah. So, you know, a few of the things, you know, with Project 2025, number one is coalescing all power to the executive, doing away with independence of our federal agencies, and installing sycophants and loyalists to Donald Trump who are completely inept and unfit to serve in the positions that they will be appointed to. And then also firing 50,000 civil servants who are the absolute machine of our government, who are the experts that don't change with administrations, that just do the work of government. So this is, you know, and that's just very much just kind of parsing down the 920-page document. And what
it's
and not
a
even
blueprint to a
Yes.
it's a blueprint to a Christian nationalist monarchy.
Yes.
That's basically what it is, because
It's not a monarchy. I'm sorry, Anita. Let me clarify. It's a dictatorship.
Dictatorship. I'm sorry. Yes.
Because a monarchy even presumes airing, you know, through a family line. That's not what they're interested in.
Yeah.
They're just.
I don't know about that.
Oh no. I think they decide who they want in power.
Right.
That's probably
and
true.
Trump will be there for as long as you're useful. And again, I keep telling people, those who do not learn from history are doomed. Not doomed to repeat it, doomed, because they won't be alive long enough to find out. The press is the first thing that gets shut down. And when they're seized and when they're shut down, they'll have no one but themselves to blame. They're not rich enough. They're not powerful enough. You will do their bidding, or like Hitler, they will shut you down.
And same with the corporations.
Right. I made Karen, I think we all know that no one is reading all 900 pages except real policy wonks. So what Tommy Beard and I did is we made a very simple meme for people to see. And I guess I have to put it up again. We've made several. But I took the basic three parts of our government: legislative, executive, and judicial. I crossed out legislative, arrow to the executive. I crossed out judicial, which of course we're seeing already, arrow to the executive. I crossed out elections every 4 years because there will be no more elections. And I showed people, Do not
Well,
make
there may be elections, real quick. There may be elections, but they're going to be a farce like they
It's
are in
gonna be
Russia.
Well,
like,
they're
yeah,
Putin-esque.
yeah.
They'll be
Yeah,
Putin-esque
yeah,
elections.
yeah.
We will tell you who can vote, and we can tell you how you'll vote. And if you don't do either of those things, bye-bye.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
we'll
why
have
I
some
keep
people
trying-
watching you vote.
Well,
Yeah.
I keep trying to tell people, no one is safe. You know,
Nope.
and I always tell the story of my parents, which we'll go into detail. But when the ghetto, as Jews from all over Europe were being imprisoned in the Lodz slave labor camp ghetto, the German soldiers who came in from World War One, the World War One German Jews, came in their uniforms.
Yep.
Because German Jews, mostly as a group, regarded themselves as Germans first and Jews
Right.
second. And
Exactly.
they were absolutely sure that the SS officers in the ghetto would look at them and their medals and all their ribbons and go, oh my God, what were we thinking? Of course you guys are okay. You guys can, and of course the SS killed them first.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the idea that if you're a veteran, if you're a family of veterans and you think, well, I've served, I've proven loyalty, you're the first to go.
Mhm.
Press, you will be shut down, you will conform, or you'll be. And to all you rich GOP bastards, to all you greedy billionaires who own the media and who own the corporations, like Timothy Mellon, your money, your companies will be nationalized. Your money will be confiscated by the government. And
That's right.
and ask the Saudi royal family who are still living, what happened to their dead relatives?
Look at the
When
Russians.
they tried to oppose Mohammed Bonesaw.
Yep.
This is ridiculous that these people fail to understand history and are not looking. And, there are plenty of good people like Maddow trying to point out that we've been down this road before, but people have to pay attention and take it seriously. This is not, oh, goodness me, and if maybe I'll vote. It's called, and if there's time, let's go back to how humiliated the New York Times yesterday was by putting up Hitler wannabes, his opinion piece on why he doesn't vote, and see what happened. But
I didn't see that.
Okay, very, very quickly, and stop me, Karen. But some schmuck who no one knew published an opinion piece called "Why I Won't Vote." And no one knew who this guy was. And why would the New York Times tell people not to vote? What the hell is wrong with them? And we know the answer is Sulzberger is a fucking fascist, and the paper promotes fascism since 1924. I can go back to 1924 when the New York Times published an article about how Hitler has left politics. He's just been released from prison. He's learned his lesson.
They also said in that article that, yeah, he has these rants, these anti-Semitic rants, but don't worry, that's just to garner more votes. He's not really, that's not what he's really all about. He's not going to do anything like that.
Yeah, bullshit. So anyway, so this guy prints this article, and immediately over in Media Busters and all the good people who are committed to actual journalism went after the New York Times and like, why on earth would you do this? Why on earth? So they finally got them, like 2 hours later, they changed it from why I won't vote to why I don't vote, which is a marginal reaction, but not nearly enough. Then Capital Hunters said, wait a minute, let me do a deep dive on this guy. And not only is he's a hard right Catholic who is a graduate of this hard right Catholic school, Hillsdale, where Eric Prince went, my man, but also voted both in 2020 and 2022. And
of course, he's trying to discourage other people.
Looks just like a Hitler wannabe. I mean, I will send you his picture after we're done taping. And I posted it everywhere on my social media.
So the New York Times didn't vet this guy at all?
Oh, I think they vetted him perfectly fine, and they allowed it because they have an agenda. They are no longer, as I said, the old gray lady needs to go to a retirement home and be retired permanently. And thank God people are canceling subscriptions, and they're getting enough of a blowback that they're changing headlines and they're making some modest But I'm sending it to their reporters, and I'm like, you're a disgrace because you're part of them. You know, you have an agenda. Your paper has an agenda. This is anti-democratic.
They led the nation
You
in
think
these.
we don't do the work? We are doing your job. We are
Yeah.
vetting, we are researching, and we are exposing. And either you change, or we're just going to keep on doing it. And more, you know, and it reverberates. And like even the new group that you and I, we three, that we've just started with Tara Dublin, now
Yeah.
has like 100 people in it. And
Wow.
that's just the DM group. We
Can I
don't
just-
want it too big.
Can I say something real quick?
I'm done.
You know,
Thank you.
Yeah, no. To your point, remember when Katie Britt, isn't that her name, came out and did that horrible response to the State of the Union?
Yeah.
And she just lied her ass off. And it took some independent journalist to 2 seconds to find out that was all a lie. What
Yep.
did she say? That this rape happened, this gang rape happened, and it was Biden's fault that this poor woman was raped, and it turns out it happened during the Bush administration. It had nothing to do with anything. And so it took an independent journalist, because the New York Times, the Washington Post, all of these leading newspapers are failing us. The NBC,
Truly.
ABC, CBS.
Yeah. Well,
There are
yeah,
some
because-
independent people like Abby Phillips, Abby D.
Yep.
Phillip, and Katie Fang, of course, who are wonderful. And there are great people on social media, like, you know, Mark Jacob and Margaret Sullivan and Dan Frumkin and Jay Rosen, who are out there every single day working hard to expose this. Stephen Beschloss, Fix Media Now, Media Matters for America. I mean, there are lots of groups, but they
Yeah.
don't have, they're not the Washington Post or the Times or the Globe
have
or
the-
any of the major, they don't have the reach. It's up to us
Yep.
to find out the truth, to expose them, and then hopefully start to affect change, or at least wake up voters so they understand that this is a direct threat. This will change I'm not going to be here, folks. When it truly hits bad, I'm going to be gone. I'm not old. I'm too old. I'm not doing this for me.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for my kids, my grandkids,
Me
and
too.
all future people in this country, because you deserve to have the rights and the love, the democracy, and the rights we have enjoyed.
Rockstar
Yeah.
cheers. Exactly right. So to the point, and it is absolutely 100% our responsibility to hold the media's feet to the fire and to, push back against these narratives that they're creating for us. So I'm going to play a little bit. This is on CNN, and historian Alan Lichtman was on talking about the debate and this whole question of whether or not to replace Joe Biden, blah blah blah. Here we go.
Polls are snapshots. They're not predictors, and they change rapidly over time. One can turn to another poll. I think it was the Morning Consult poll, which showed that after the debate, Biden improved by 1 point. He went from a dead heat to a 45 to 44% victory. And, I love you guys in the media, but I have to say you are complicit in Donald Trump lying and conning his way to the presidency. All the attention has been on Biden's faltering debate, but Donald Trump's debate was vastly worse. It was based entirely on lies, more than 30 significant lies. That's one lie for about every 1 minute and 20 and 30 seconds. He threatened our democracy by saying he wouldn't accept necessarily the results of a fair election. He said he would seek retribution. Why wasn't that the headlines? Why wasn't that the greatest concern from the debate, rather than all the focus on Joe Biden? There's an old saying, it's not just the evil people who wreak havoc on the world. It's the good people who don't do enough to stop them. And the media right now is complicit in Donald Trump gaslighting his way to the presidency and threatening our democracy.
Can I also shout out to Midas Touch, because they've been very good. They have a show every day live at like 7 a.m. Central Time. 7 p.m. Central Time. And they have, like, when Donald Trump does these stupid performative, not just I don't know what they are. They're a setup. Like when he came out of the trial, and supposedly there was all these people out there cheering for him in New York, in Manhattan. And it turned out it was the New York young Republicans. It was all set up. They didn't just, and they had shirts and they had posters and everything. Like they knew that this was about to happen, that they were sent there to do that. When a black woman ran up to him in that Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, Georgia, the media just fell, they just reported like, here we go. Donald Trump is gaining. And by the way, we've been hearing how the black vote, Donald Trump has made so many inroads in the black community. And it was all bullshit. That woman was Candace Owens. She worked for Candace Owens. She was in that black exit. I don't know what they called it. Blexit, I guess.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. To leave the Democratic Party. She was an operative. That was a setup. What were some of the other things that y'all remember? All these setups that they just, the media just, falls for it every time. I'm not sure. When are they ever going to stop falling for?
Let's see, the bodega.
The bodega.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's every time.
It's all performance art. It's all performative bullshit. And the media just swallows it. I mean, he shovels, they swallow. Just like they're no better than the maggots, the MAGA morons. I don't question. He feeds me. I swallow it. Is it toxic bullshit? Will it kill me? It doesn't matter. My boss will pay me. I'm a GOP lapdog. And if I want my job back, Brian Stelter got hell this week. He got fired by CNN. You would think he would be a better advocate for better journalism. And instead, he tried to issue this. He wrote this pathetic post about how people who are criticizing the media should be listening to what the reporters are saying. And then he had to take it down because it just, the blowback was, no, Brian, stop sucking their dick. Sorry. John Malone's not hiring you back.
Yeah.
No.
Well, Nita, you were talking about that conservative who had black voters calling in. He said something.
Right. Mark Singleton.
Yeah.
Mark Singleton. He was on. He has a radio show, and apparently he announced that he was going to join this media chorus of people asking Joe Biden to step aside. And he got so much blowback, so many calls were coming in. They had to shut down the calls. They were all telling him, they were very angry, and they were saying, we don't give a crap. Yeah, they were furious. We don't give a crap. These are black callers saying they don't give a crap about the debate. They want Biden, and they didn't feel comfortable with Kamala. I hate to say that, but they didn't. For some, not because they're afraid America is not going to elect a black woman. I hate to say that but
they know the reality. That's the thing. You're coming from an extreme place of privilege. If you think, they know the score. Okay. They've been called the N-word. They've experienced firsthand discrimination. Okay. And when we're in this moment, when we have this internal threat, it's like we say existential threat. The Republican Party led by Donald Trump is an internal threat. They're a domestic threat to our institutions, to our democracy, to every single person in this country, to our way of life. They are, and particularly our marginalized communities. So Black Americans understand that.
They understand that because
better than anybody.
Yeah, it means life or death. To them.
So there are 2 points out of this. And of course, I agree with you and everything. But there are 2 pieces of this, which has to do with the fact that this is exactly why the only way Republicans can win is by cheating, by gerrymandering, by suppressing voters, because they
taking
know
the courts over, taking the courts over. Right.
Yeah. So, and also lying. They lie. They lie about everything.
Well, no, they lie. So every week I put out a meme which has a blank clipboard, and it says, name all the Republican economic policies over the last 40 years that have helped the working and middle class. And it has been blank for 40 years. It continues to be blank because no one can give me a particular bill that was signed into law that helped anyone but themselves and the richest Americans and corporations. Number two, amazingly, we're 50 minutes into this program, and we haven't talked about the largest voting bloc in the country, women.
Yes.
And women are not falling for media bullshit, and they're not falling for the lies, and they're not falling for the fascism, because women are dying. In Texas alone, my friend Anita, my understanding is in the past 2 years since the fall of Roe, 26,000 Texas women have been raped.
26,000 Texas women have been forced to give birth to the rapist baby.
Okay, there we go. That's even more horrendous. Now stop everyone listening to this and breathe that in. When I write, the other post I make every week is Republicans legally want to kill women. Prove me wrong. You either will bend to their will and just put on the freaking hijab and give up your rights, or you better fight. And every woman in America and their male allies. And my family are full of male allies, from my husband to my son to my grandchildren to all the friends we know. You know, people talk about all these people who still support Republicans and the GOP and Trump. I happen to be blessed. I don't know anyone like that. I don't know anyone like that, because everyone, even my older sister who lives on a planet far, far away and loves bullies and you know, she thinks because they're strong men. Even she, when we started talking about abortion, because she has 2 daughters and 3 granddaughters, she stopped and looked at me and she said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Please stop sticking your head in the sand. This vote
vote accordingly.
You must vote.
Don't vote for Republicans.
Girls, do you want these grandgirls, these gorgeous young women who are 21, 18, and 17? Do you want these gorgeous women to die from a back alley abortion? Do you believe you'll be able to get them an abortion because you live in New York State and you won't have to worry about them? And do you believe that every young woman in America and every woman in America deserves the freedom to decide her own personal autonomy, that decisions about her body rely with her and her medical professions? And if you do, you cannot vote for Trump. We got into a very heated battle about this.
And can I just say this? And please, young women out there like my niece who's living in Texas, okay? This is not just about you. You can make whatever decisions you want, okay? You may not be concerned with birth control because, well, we're going to have kids anyway, so whatever, you know.
Oh, no, you're rolling the dice.
Yeah, you're rolling the dice, because that means then if you have got to have a perfect pregnancy where nothing goes wrong. And by the way, when you say to me that, you know, thanks, Auntie, for not talking about politics in front of my Trump loving boyfriend. Thanks. That's not politics. I am telling you, we have got to make sure that these young people understand we're not talking about politics. We are talking about your personal choices, your personal freedoms, because if you don't do politics, we all know politics is going to do you. So
this is a matter of life and death for women across this country. And look, what they're talking about is they're going to enact the Comstock law from like 1865 or something like that. And what it'll do, it'll ban medical equipment companies from shipping any medical supplies for abortions to any state. It'll be illegal. So they won't have to sign a national abortion ban. Although, and we were talking about this earlier, apparently there's some infighting within the Republican Party, because there are people there like Tony Perkins from the Family, what's the name of that place? Family
Research Council.
Family Research Council, who wants to, he wants in their platform, the Republican platform, that they want a constitutional amendment banning abortion.
Oh, yeah.
To be in the Constitution.
And this is the other thing, too, that I want young people to understand. This isn't just Trump. This is the entire Republican Party. In Texas, my dear niece, that is the Republican Party that's doing that. That's not just Trump. You can hate Trump. We all hate Trump. But that's not that's not the only thing you need to
It's
be
their
concerned
platform.
with.
Ban abortion, ban IVS, ban contraception,
Yep.
ban no-fault divorce.
Yep.
They're already
Yeah.
floating that. They
I
want
know.
women under the domination and command of a white man, not a black man, not a Hispanic man. They
Yep.
want the white Christo-fascist patriarchy to be installed. And if you believe in any separation of church and state, you do not allow any religion, I don't care who you are, to influence. You know, Ben Franklin said, what have you given us, sir, after the Constitution was adopted? And he said, we have given you a democratic republic if you can keep it.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
eternal vigilance. And we are facing it now by a very determined, wealthy, supported group of radical, right-wing religious zealots, 6 of whom sit on the Supreme Court and who should be impeached for putting their religion they have all committed perjury. They have
Yes.
all violated their oaths of office and their ethics,
Yes.
and all of them. And they are like, what church and state? We are going to be the church and state. We will.
Oh, they
put
don't believe in
dictators.
separation of church and state. Yeah, they don't believe in it. And as
So
a matter of fact,
wait-
what I
so
say
wait,
is
can-
they want to turn the whole country into Texas. So if
That's
you're
right.
looking at Texas and going, wow, that's bad happening over there, but we don't have to worry here in New York or Maryland or Illinois, because we've got great, Democrats in control. I'm
So
sorry,
for our listeners, ladies, can one or both of you speak to what is the remedy then? We know what the Supreme Court has done. We know that they are completely violating their oaths. We've seen some really horrible decisions handed down just in the last couple of weeks. So what can we do?
pretty simple.
What
Pretty simple.
is the
Reelect Joe
remedy?
Biden and Democrats. Reelect Joe Biden, vote blue up and down the ticket. We have to take control. We cannot allow Republicans to govern. They cannot govern. They've never been able to govern, and they don't care about democracy. They don't care about women's rights. They don't care about civil rights. They don't care about any of those things. As a matter of fact, they hate them. So we have to vote blue, no matter who, up and down the ticket. And we have to reform this court. We know that. We need to expand the court. There's a lot of things. We need to get rid of the filibuster. All these things we cannot accomplish unless we reelect Joe Biden. And then we also elect Democrats up and down the ticket.
We called all of our Democratic reps. We wrote all our Democratic reps. And not only did we tell them to grow a pair and support Biden unequivocally, which our lovely governor, thank God for Wes Moore, absolutely did the other
Yeah, he
day
did.
after the
I heard him.
Democratic
Yep.
governors met. But in terms, people need to understand the history of the court. First of all, bravo AOC, because she's introducing articles of impeachment against some of the Supreme Court justices. And she's completely right. And Democrats still are bringing what I call bringing a spork to a knife fight. The Republicans laugh because they don't care how illegal, how dirty they fight. The Democrats are still trying to take a higher plane. Joe Biden should arrest Donald Trump tomorrow and put his ass in Gitmo. Okay, he is a domestic terrorist. He is the clear and present danger to our country, to the safety and democracy of this country. He won't do it because he's a good guy.
Do it.
But I'm sick of Democrats.
Because he doesn't. That is an argument for us to vote for him, because what he's saying is, and he said, I dissent, right? Because he doesn't believe that the president should have full immunity to basically. And by the way, anything what they really mean is there's immunity for Republicans.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's not
that's
immunity
all
for
that means.
Democrats.
There are
Joe
executive
Biden-
orders.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There are executive orders he can sign. There's certainly more that the Congress, the House and Senate can be doing, even if it doesn't pass, to show strength, to show determination. But I do want to go, if you give me a minute, to go back to the expand the court, because not only should we absolutely do it, but people need to understand the last time the court was expanded was 1869, when the government moved from 7 district courts to 9 district courts, and they realized they needed a Supreme Court justice at every federal court. We now have, and there were 31 million people in this country in 1869. Now there's 332 million people, and we have 13 federal districts. So we need 13 Supreme Court justices.
Yes.
We're not just expanding the court because, oh, we hate the conservatives and we
Right.
want more liberals in there. That may
Right.
be true to the point that I believe that these 6 guys are Christo-fascists and have lied and don't deserve to sit on the highest court. And I see what they're doing to this country and to our democracy. But from a just a historical perspective, it is long time for there
It's
to be
ridiculous.
this expansion. 13 courts,
Yeah.
13 judges,
Yeah.
and that has to happen as soon as possible.
Yep.
Some of the Supreme Court justices have to take on extra loads because
Right.
they have to represent, because there's 13 courts. So some of them have to take a couple of districts instead of, that's why they're not able to hear as many cases.
Right.
And they
Bingo.
pick and choose the worst
Bingo.
cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't think Biden, he said he's not going to do anything like that. He doesn't believe, and by the way, they would probably impeach him the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they'll just remove them. They'll
Yeah.
nationalize
Yeah.
their troops. They'll get a
it
bunch of their
doesn't-
fascists under Charlie Flynn, send them down and remove them. These people aren't playing fair. They're not playing. They don't give a shit what you think or what's legal. They mounted an insurrection. Why do people forget that? They don't care about
they're
the
violent. Look,
yes.
they're violent. They're violent. And the people, they're foot soldiers who are now serving time. They have said that they will pardon them. So they mean what they say. And the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers are standing back and standing by. They will be the brown shirts. So having said
exactly
that,
what they're going to do, right, Karen?
Exactly right. So
It is what
having
they're gonna
said
do.
that, Sue, let's talk a little bit. We don't have tons of time, but let's talk a little bit about the similarities then between the rise of Hitler and what we're seeing play out right now.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it. Okay, so most people who know me know that I am the daughter of Holocaust survivors. My parents were born in Poland, in the town of Łódź, which is spelled Lodz. So I'm going to say Lodz so people understand and can look it up. But Lodz was the second largest city, a big industrial city, Warsaw being the biggest. Lodz had over 600,000 people, residents in it. When the Nazis marched into Poland and took it over so quickly, they very quickly started to form these ghettos. They also, curiously, because unfortunately Poles have a very long sordid history of anti-Semitism. So most of the concentration camps are not in Germany, they're in Poland. And there was a good reason for that. They were happy to help kill Jews. My parents were 16 and 19. My mother was immediately forced out of school. My dad was studying in a yeshiva. He had to go to work. They were all moved from their homes or crowded with new people. My mom was one of 8 children. My father was one of 5. Now, my father had a grocery store, and they lived above the store. So the Nazis needed the food. So my father was put on a food detail. My mother was sent to a factory where she made German uniforms and buttons. My father joined the resistance. And I want to tell people now, operated a secret radio. And I need to tell you guys that because our family is exceedingly proud of the role that my dad and my family played in liberating about 780 Jews at the end of the war, before Russia liberated them on January 19th, 1945. But in terms of the history, and I will say, they were kids, they were teenagers. I don't know how much other people in their family were aware of the menace, but no one tried to get out. They were all poor, so they didn't have the money or the means. But, when the German government gave Hitler unrestricted power, he did 3 things right away. The first thing he did was shut the press down. Reich press loses last of its rights. It must serve the state. Heavy penalty is set for any article against Nazis with death for treason. So the first thing that went was the free press. Second was the passing of the Enabling Act in March after the 1933 election. Hitler got the power to make any law without needing a vote in the Reichstag. He banned all political parties and trade unions. He put those leaders in Dachau, the first concentration camp that was opened in 1933.
1933. Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, so what did he do? He took care of the legislative branch with the Enabling Act. He took care of the free press. And then he finished up by destroying the courts. Betrayal of the rule of law is Nazis. The courts then ran according to the law, according to Hitler and Nazism. And any judge that didn't conform and rule the way they told him went bye-bye permanently, unless they were able to escape. So by the mid-30s, they had taken full control of the German government, and the things you see, and I do recommend a book called In the Garden of Beasts by the great writer Erik Larson. That's Eriklarson, because Erik writes about the last U.S. ambassador to serve Germany before the war, and he was posted there around 1933. And he brought his family, including his adult daughter, who actually was a slut and a Nazi sympathizer, which is a great side story just because you're reading it going, lady, wake up.
Yeah.
But the story, he talks about the benches in the parks that say no Juden, the ongoing brutality. He sends cable after cable to the State Department telling Roosevelt, you've got to act sooner. You've got to see the threat in Europe is real. We need to help Britain. This is really dangerous. This is fascism on steroids, And the problem was that the State Department was peopled with white, anti-Semitic bastards who refused, who didn't care. Just like they turned away the St. Louis when the ship came. They just didn't give a shit about Jewish lives. So in the resistance, the Jews quickly realized they were on their own. So the camp, my parents' forced labor camp, was a horrible, overcrowded, disease-ridden, starved group of poor people, prisoners.
What camp was it?
It's called the Ghetto. It was called the Ghetto Lodge Slave Labor Camp. My parents were prisoners.
I know about
September 1939, as I said, until January 45. My father worked with us, and I want people to know this because this is what happens when you shut down a free press. The SS were not that smart, and the SS needed to use engineers to fix all their radio communications. So some of the people in the resistance smuggled out a crystal, a battery, one at a time, and ultimately built these 4 little radios or crystal sets to monitor broadcasts. All knowledge was illegal. All knowledge.
Yeah. Was illegal. A lot of people would listen to the BBC anyway, but yeah.
Oh, no, not in Lodge. They were literally.
Oh, not in Lodge. I meant in Germany. Yeah. They would illegally. It was illegal.
4 crystal sets. 2 were discovered during the war. Those people were tortured and murdered. But to their credit, they did not give up anybody else's names. 2 survived the war. My dad's has his name on it. It is currently at a Ghetto Fighters Museum north of Haifa in Israel, because my father gave it to the son of the leader of the resistance group. I will tell people, if anyone is interested, watch the movie Jacob the Liar. That's Jakob. It's a Robin Williams movie. It is not a great movie, let me tell you. No Oscars. But it is all about the Lodge Ghetto. And I will tell you the funny story about this. Jacob Becker was the son of the barbershop owner. He was only 7. He was young. He was under 10 during this time. And his father told him that the secret radio, that the resistance met at the barbershop. And so I took my folks to see the movie when it came out. And when it was over, and you're watching these horrors, and I'm watching them watch. And I said, when it was over, I said to them, how much of this was accurate? And other than my mother crying, she was like 75% of this. And my father laughed because he was always hilarious. And he's like, we never used the barbershop. We knew his father wasn't to be trusted. He only thought he was important, but he was a side note. So my father listened to broadcasts. My father every night listened to the BBC. He listened to the French press, anything he could, US, anything he could get, Russian. And we always laughed because we said to him, what language do you dream in? Because for 4 years, this is all he did. He said, I dream in all of them, which made perfect sense to us. But he would listen, and then he would go out, and because he was on the grocery detail, he was able to move around a lot, and he would spread the news to his trusted fellow resistance fighters. And so when the Russians, and you can hear, obviously you can hear artillery and bombs. So in early January, as it became clear that the Nazis had lost and they were starting to not just retreat, but to hide the evidence, my father heard over the radio that the Russians were within days of liberating their camp, that area. So the Germans say to them, this is 3 days before liberation, Germans say to them, everyone has to meet in the courtyard for extra rations on tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And my father said, rations my ass. They had already dug their mass graves. They knew this.
Yeah, that's what they did.
So they spread the word, go hide.
Mhm.
And over the course of the war, they had all built all these fake rooms and shelters and farmhouses, and they had just done. So my folks hid with a lot of other people in a secret room. And on the third day, they heard the tanks come into the camp, and they sent out a young boy who said, "It's Russians," and that's how they knew that the war.
You know what's the most similar thing? What was happening in Germany was that the conservatives in the Reichstag were thinking they could control Hitler.
Right.
And so they voted for the enabling act that Sue talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Overwhelmingly.
If you give people absolute power, they will rule absolutely.
Right.
So
Sue, can I ask you a question? What would you then say, since we are seeing parallels here? What would you say to young people and, voters who think that we're just going to have, that they're willing to risk things, even if it means another 4 years of Trump? What do you say to them when they think that they're going to still be able to go out and celebrate Pride or go and protest this or that?
Let's be clear. Gays, people who had difficulties, anyone who was disabled were killed first. They were even killed before the Jews. They cleaned house early because they took care of the real powerless first. But many Jews had power, they had money.
Mentally ill.
Think about all the art that was confiscated, all the gold and jewels. I mean, that is still an ongoing. Here we are 70 years later. It is still going on, the trying to reclaim things that were stolen by the Nazis that are hanging in museums today. So it's ongoing. And my folks were young, right? My dad was 19 when it started, and he was 24 when it was over. So it's young people who can really affect change. Young soldiers, young people with the courage to make a difference. And that's why I love people like Victor Shi and the Voters of Tomorrow, and all those young people
Harry
who are out there.
But they will shut it down. They will. What the Nazis did was they took over the universities. They fired all the professors and replaced them with Nazis. Right. I mean, even the schools.
It was a very systematic, and you don't ever want to be in a place again like the people in Germany in the early 30s. But yet we are Germany 1932. Yes. It is not hyperbole. Yeah. I know so many people. I know most people, it's summer, and most people will not even begin to pay attention to this election until after Labor Day. Yeah. I understand. But I'm going to compile and keep putting the word out and compile a body of evidence that when they're ready to listen and ready to work and get that vote out and to register. Peter registers voters. I'm going to be a poll worker. All of us can do something. All of us can do something to turn out the vote. We need the largest. If Biden won by 7 million that last time, he needs to win by 10 million this time. Everyone must double check their voter registration, make sure they vote, make sure their vote is counted wherever they live. And they should do it today or tomorrow, because when they walk into that poll booth in November, it's too late. Yep. Those provisional ballots simply don't carry the same weight.
Well, I would tell, yes, that's true, but don't discourage people from getting a provisional ballot.
No,
if
I
something
don't want to
happens.
do that, but
Yeah.
you shouldn't
Yeah.
need to if you've done all the work.
That's
And
right.
it's not
That's
like
right.
it's hard work. Most
Right.
of it's online. Are you registered? You check. Oh, look, I'm registered.
Right.
Yeah.
And a month before, check again, and then you're done.
Yes, but if
help
you
Mhm.
show
others.
up, but if
Go to
if you show up,
vote.org.
yes, go to vote.org, check your registration, and if you do, have a plan to vote. Make your plan. If you do show up and they tell you we don't have you on here, ask
Yeah.
for the provisional ballot.
And I will
right?
finish, and
Yeah.
thank you for
And
letting me tell my family story. But I will say there are two things we have power. We, the people, have two powers. One, we have the power of our purse. And I spend blue. I use my money. I don't buy stuff at Walmart. I go to Costco. Costco's a good company that pays a fair
I
wage,
love Costco.
that treats people well, that treats the company and the employees and treats
Yeah.
the customer well. I don't support places like Walmart that suck out and kill small communities and send all the money to themselves at the end of every
Right.
day, and the community gets nothing for it. Support, I use my power of my purse, and then the power of your vote. Your vote is your voice. Never silence it. Never silence it. I don't fathom. My parents came in 49, became citizens in 54, and never missed a chance to vote because they had lost the right to vote. They had lost the right to
Yep.
be free.
My grandparents too. My grandparents came from fascist Italy.
There you go.
They fled from Mussolini.
Right.
So yeah, they did the same
Yep.
thing. They were religious voters. They voted every election. And they joined a
So-
union. They belonged to a union and they had good jobs because of that and good
My
pensions.
dad was a union strong, 50
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
Kept my
Yeah,
mother
so-
from eating cat food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I
That-
think that ladies, this is a great note to end on. And because Sue, you've been such a fantastic special guest on our 4th of July.
Yes, thank you,
episode,
Sue.
Thank you.
We're gonna leave you with a special treat. And I would just like to say that never again. We're not going back.
Never again.
You can't make us. We're going to vote. Our votes are our voices. And so I'm going to leave you with this. This is a lovely person on Twitter who calls himself Bob South Florida Waterman. And his handle is at Water Dean, Dean. So I would like to leave you ladies with this.
Kevin Roberts, that asshole president of the Heritage Foundation, says that we're in the process of a second revolution and we're going to win. Those are big words coming out of the asshole, huh? America has never been defeated, and especially here on our own soil and by traitors. There is no way that these assholes, these scumbags, these low-life pieces of shit are going to take this country away from us. We're not going to let it happen. There's more of us than them. And we're going to do it by voting. They want to do it by killing people and stealing and cheating and lying. I'm 79 fucking years old, and there ain't no goddamn way in hell that I'm gonna live whatever years I have left under the control of a fucking dictator. And I'm goddamn sure there's plenty of people out there that will say the same thing. We will never let that happen.
Can I just add one quick thing, Karen? Last night, we had such wonderful fireworks here in Rockville, and I taped like 40 seconds of it, and I posted it on Twitter. So if anyone wants to check, they can find it. And what I wrote was, "America is for all of us, and you fucking fascists can't have it.
That's right.
We will protect democracy. We will vote blue no matter what." And I was inspired. I'm in the middle of watching fireworks and I'm talking into my phone. And then I came back and I posted it everywhere because I could not agree more with Bob, and just say, I'm younger though, I'm not quite as old as Bob, but we're not standing for it. We will not stand by and see this happen.
We will not go back. Viva la resistance!
No.
Vote
Power
blue.
to the people.
Vote blue, no matter who.